A very warm and sincere welcome to you, distinguished listener, to my book library. Today, we embark on a deep, immersive exploration of one of the most definitive works on human strategy ever compiled, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This is not merely a book to be read, it is a curriculum to be studied, a mirror held up to the often unseen mechanics of influence, control, and social dynamics that have shaped history. Robert Greene spent nearly a decade immersed in the lives of history's greatest strategists, from Renaissance courtiers and Eastern philosophers to industrial titans and modern-day influencers. He distilled 3,000 years of power dynamics into 48 fundamental, timeless laws. The book's core premise is stark. Power is a game. To refuse to learn its rules is not virtue. It is naivete, guaranteeing that you will be outmaneuvered by those who do play. Whether you seek to ascend in your career, protect yourself from manipulation, or simply understand the hidden architecture of your organization and society, this book is an indispensable, if unsettling, guide. Over the next 2 hours, we will undertake a meticulous journey through all 48 laws. We will not rush. For each law, we will unpack its strategic essence, illustrated with multiple historical and contemporary examples. Law 1. Never outshine the master. The principle: always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your eagerness to please or impress, do not go too far in displaying your talents. You risk inspiring fear and insecurity. Instead, make your masters appear more brilliant than they are. Historical example: in the court of Louis XIV, the Sun King, courtiers were masters of this art. They would intentionally wear less splendid clothing, make subtle grammatical errors in conversation, and even lose games of chance to ensure the king always remained the brightest star in the firmament. Modern example: a brilliant junior executive, upon solving a critical problem, would present the solution in a way that allows their direct manager to take the credit and present it to upper management. This earns the manager's enduring trust and patronage, which is more valuable than a moment of personal glory. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. The principle: friends can easily become envious, feel entitled, and take you for granted. A former enemy, however, has more to prove. Once defeated and brought into your fold, they must constantly demonstrate their loyalty and worth, often making them more reliable than a friend. Historical example: the Medici family of Renaissance Florence were brilliant practitioners of this law. After crushing a rebellion, they would often pardon the ringleaders and bring them into the government, transforming passionate adversaries into fiercely loyal and effective administrators. Modern example: after a corporate merger, a savvy CEO might identify the most talented and respected manager from the acquired company, often a former rival, and promote them to a key position. This neutralizes a threat and secures valuable expertise. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. The principle: keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the true purpose behind your actions. Is they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Use a smokescreen of honesty and misdirection to lead them down the wrong path. Historical example: the legendary conman Yellow Kid Weil never used the same scam twice. He would create elaborate, believable personas: a doctor, a priest, a mining engineer, to weave a narrative that completely distracted his victims from his true criminal objectives. Modern example: a company aiming to acquire a smaller tech startup might publicly express interest in a partnership or a minor technology license. This conceals their true intention of a full takeover, preventing the startup from seeking other buyers or inflating its price. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. The principle: the more you say, the more common you appear, and the more likely you are to say something foolish. Powerful people impress by saying less. When you are silent, others will inevitably reveal more about themselves, giving you the advantage. Historical example: the French leader Charles de Gaulle cultivated a persona of majestic silence. He was famous for his long, deliberate pauses in conversation, which made his eventual words seem more profound and weighty. Modern example: in a tense negotiation, the person who speaks first after an offer is made often loses. By staying silent and allowing the awkward pause to linger, you force the other party to fill the void, potentially revealing their bottom line or making a concession. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. The principle: your reputation is the cornerstone of your power. It is a defensive fortress. Once it is tarnished, you become vulnerable to attack. Learn to destroy your enemies by strategically opening holes in their reputation. Then stand aside and let public opinion hang them. Historical example: Queen Elizabeth I of England meticulously crafted her reputation as the Virgin Queen. Wedded to her nation. This image of purity, sacrifice, and divine right became a powerful tool for unifying the country and commanding absolute loyalty from her subjects. Modern example: in politics, a carefully placed leak to a journalist about an opponent's financial impropriety or personal scandal can be far more effective than any policy debate, as it destroys their credibility with the electorate. Law 6. Court attention at all cost. The principle: it is better to be slandered and attacked than to be ignored. Obscurity is the death of power. Everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. You must therefore create memorable, striking spectacles that make you the center of attention. Historical example: the Roman Emperor Nero was a master of spectacle. He staged incredibly elaborate gladiatorial games, public performances, and massive construction projects, all to keep the populace's eyes fixed firmly on him and his grandeur. Modern example: entrepreneurs like Elon Musk understand this law perfectly. A single provocative tweet can generate weeks of free media coverage, keeping his companies, Tesla and SpaceX, constantly in the public eye and creating a powerful brand aura. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. The principle: use the wisdom, knowledge, and legwork of others to further your own cause. Your genius lies not in doing the work yourself, but in your ability to manage, direct, and harness the work of others efficiently. In the end, your ability to orchestrate this effort will be remembered and rewarded. Historical example: Thomas Edison, though a brilliant inventor and businessman, famously relied on a team of researchers and engineers at his Menlo Park laboratory, nicknamed the Invention Factory. He cultivated a public image as a lone genius, taking primary credit for inventions that were often the result of collective, collaborative effort. Modern example: a project manager who successfully delivers a complex. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. The principle: when you force the other person to act, you are the one in control. It is always better to make your opponent come to you, abandoning their own plans in the process. Lure them with gains, then attack. Historical example: the great military strategist Napoleon Bonaparte would often choose a strong defensive position and let his enemies wear themselves out attacking it. Once they were exhausted and committed, he would launch a devastating counterattack. Modern example: a highly sought-after job candidate should not appear desperate. By letting the company pursue them, they gain leverage in salary negotiations and signal their high value. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. The principle, demonstrating your point through decisive, successful action, is far more powerful and less likely to create resentment than winning a verbal argument. Momentary victories in debate are often hollow and cost you goodwill. Historical example. During the Cold War, the United States and Soviet Union engaged in the space race. The USSR's successful launch of Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, was a non-verbal argument that demonstrated their technological prowess far more powerfully than any propaganda speech could. Modern example. Instead of arguing endlessly with a skeptical board of directors about a new business strategy, a CEO might run a small, controlled pilot program in one market. A successful result with hard data proves the concept incontrovertibly and silences all opposition. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. The principle. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You can die from someone else's misery. Do not associate with those who are plagued with misfortune or chronic unhappiness. They will inevitably drag you down with them. Historical example. Cardinal Richelieu, the powerful chief minister to Louis XIII, was notoriously careful about his associations. He avoided those who were seen as unlucky or who were chronic complainers, believing their negative energy could undermine his position. Modern example. In a corporate environment, a manager might discreetly transfer a perpetually negative and cynical employee away from their team. That employee's toxic attitude can spread, killing morale and productivity for the entire group. Section 2. Social intelligence and strategic interaction. This section covers the laws of human psychology, deception, and the art of influencing those around you. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. The principle. To maintain your independence of power, you must make others dependent on you. The more people rely on you for their success, security, or happiness, the more freedom you have. Do not teach them so much that they can do without you. Historical example. In medieval courts, the court jester was often the only person granted the license to speak truth to the king. His unique, protected role made him indispensable as a source of uncensored information and perspective, granting him a surprising degree of influence and protection. Modern example. An IT systems administrator who is the only person who fully understands the company's complex legacy server infrastructure makes themselves virtually unfireable and can command a high salary and significant autonomy. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. The principle. One sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones. A timely gift or a seemingly heartfelt act of generosity can serve as a powerful smokescreen, lowering someone's guard and making them vulnerable to a later, more strategic maneuver. Historical example. The notorious conman Victor Lustig, before attempting his famous selling the Eiffel Tower scam, would first take his wealthy marks on lavish tours and present himself as a slightly corrupt but honest government official. This selective honesty about his corruption made the larger lie about selling the tower seem more believable. Modern example. A salesperson might begin by admitting a minor, inconsequential flaw in their product. This small act of honesty builds immense trust, making the customer more likely to believe everything else the salesperson says about the product's major benefits. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. The principle. The person you are appealing to has their own needs and desires. When you need assistance, show them how helping you will in some way benefit them. Never appeal to their pity, mercy, or past kindnesses. Historical example. Benjamin Franklin, wanting to win over a rival legislator, knew that flattery would be transparent. Instead, he wrote a note asking to borrow a specific rare book from the man's prestigious library. This appealed to the man's pride as a collector and scholar, flattered him, and initiated a friendly relationship. Modern example: an employee asking for a raise should not focus on their personal financial struggles, mortgage, bills. Instead, they should present a detailed report showing how their work has increased revenue or saved costs. Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. The principle: to gain critical information, you must appear friendly and open. Ask indirect questions, encourage others to talk, and gather valuable intelligence about their plans and weaknesses under the guise of casual conversation. Historical example: in the cutthroat world of Renaissance Italy, diplomats were essentially licensed spies. They would attend the courts of rival city-states, posing as friendly ambassadors while secretly gathering every scrap of information about military plans, alliances, and internal dissent. Modern example: a corporate executive at an industry conference might have a friendly drink with a counterpart from a competing company, subtly steering the conversation toward market trends and challenges, thereby gleaning insights into the competitor's strategy. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. The principle: if you leave even one ember smoldering, it will eventually ignite. The enemy you show mercy to today will become your destroyer tomorrow. Half measures are a form of suicide. Historical example: the ancient Romans, after defeating Carthage in the Punic Wars, did not just impose a treaty. They besieged the city, razed it to the ground, sowed the earth with salt so nothing would grow, and sold the entire population into slavery, ensuring it could never rise again to challenge them. Modern example: in a legal battle, a company with a strong case might offer no settlement and push for a total victory in court, not just to win the case, but to set a precedent that deters future lawsuits from other potential claimants. 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. The principle: the more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. Withdraw for a time to let your reputation grow and to allow people to talk wistfully about your return. Create a sense of value through scarcity. Historical example: the artist Banksy has built an immense global reputation and market value for his art precisely because of his complete anonymity and unpredictable, rare appearances. Each new piece becomes a major event because of his absence from the mainstream art world. Modern example: a top-tier consultant, after delivering a massively successful project, might deliberately make themselves less available for new requests. This increases their perceived value and allows them to command significantly higher fees for their next engagement. Or, Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. The principle: if your behavior is consistent and predictable, you are easy to control. By acting in ways that seem to have no rational pattern, you keep everyone around you in a state of anxious uncertainty. They will exhaust themselves trying to explain your moves and anticipate your next one. Historical example: the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was the ultimate master of this law. He would promote a young commissar to a position of great power one day and have him executed the next. This constant, random terror kept his entire inner circle in a state of absolute, paralyzing fear and obedience. Modern example: a football coach who uses a wildly unpredictable mix of offensive plays, long passes, trick plays, unexpected rudders, keeps the opposing defense perpetually off balance and unable to form a coherent strategy. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. The principle: isolation cuts you off from valuable information and makes you an easy target. It is far better to circulate and stay in the thick of things. Power depends on social networks and the flow of information. Historical example: the Ming dynasty in China, after building a massive navy, suddenly retreated inward, dismantled its fleet, and built the Great Wall. This isolationism eventually led to technological and military stagnation, making them vulnerable to European powers centuries later. Modern example: a tech company that operates in a walled garden, refusing to integrate with other platforms, may find itself isolated and ultimately irrelevant, while companies that build open ecosystems and partnerships thrive. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. The principle: there are many different kinds of people in the world, and you cannot deceive or offend everyone. You must choose your battles and your targets with extreme care. Misjudging someone's character, resilience, or hidden power can be a fatal error. Historical example: in Shakespeare's Othello, the villain Iago brilliantly manipulates everyone around him: Othello, Cassio, Roderigo. But he fatally underestimates his own wife, Emilia, whose final public revelation of his schemes destroys him completely. Modern example: a journalist writing an exposé should meticulously research their subject. Targeting a notoriously litigious billionaire with vast financial resources and a willingness to destroy critics could lead to a devastating, career-ending lawsuit. Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. The principle: by staying independent and refusing to commit to any single person, party, or cause, you become the master of others. You play people against one another and maintain your freedom to maneuver as the situation changes. Historical example: Switzerland maintained its power and sovereignty through centuries of European wars by steadfastly refusing to commit to any military alliance. Its neutrality made it a safe haven for money and diplomacy, giving it outsized influence. Modern example: a freelance professional with a diverse client base is far more powerful and secure than an employee tied to a single company. They can pick and choose projects, set their rates, and are immune to being laid off. Section 3. The grand strategy: timing, planning, and maneuvering. This section covers the higher-level laws of strategy, focusing on long-term planning, bold action, and the art of controlling the tempo of events. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. The principle: no one likes feeling stupider than another. Make your opponents feel smarter than you are, and they will never suspect that you have an ulterior motive. This is the foundation of the most effective cons. Historical example: the ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu advised, "When strong, appear weak." A general might feign disorder and fear to lure an overconfident enemy into a trap. Modern example: a poker champion might spend the first hour of a tournament playing like a reckless amateur, losing small pots. This encourages others to see them as a sucker, setting them up for a massive, unexpected bluff, later for a huge pot. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. The principle: when you are weaker, surrender is often the wisest course. Do not fight for honor. It is a fool's game. Surrender gives you time to recover, time to torment and irritate your victor, and time to wait for that power to wane. Historical example: in 1807, Tsar Alexander I of Russia, faced with Napoleon's seemingly invincible Grand Armée, chose to surrender and sign the humiliating Treaty of Tilsit. He used the ensuing 5 years to rebuild his forces and forge new alliances. When Napoleon invaded again in 1812, Alexander's strategy and the Russian winter led to the complete destruction of the French army. Modern example: a small tech company threatened with a patent lawsuit by a giant like Apple or Google might agree to a licensing deal rather than fighting a ruinously expensive legal battle. This allows them to survive, grow their business, and potentially challenge the giant from a position of strength years later. Law 23. Concentrate your forces. The principle: conserve your forces and energy by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting from one shallow mine to another. Intensity defeats extensity every time. Historical example: the great generals Alexander, Hannibal, Napoleon all won their most famous victories by concentrating their forces on a single decisive point in the enemy's line, even as they were outnumbered overall. Modern example: a business is better off becoming the absolute best and dominating a specific niche. Example: the best CRM for real estate agents, than by being a mediocre competitor in 10 different markets. Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. The principle: the perfect courtier masters the arts of indirection, flatters while appearing sincere, and adapts seamlessly to the specific psyche of the ruler. They make the king feel more kingly and powerful. Historical example: Baldassare Castiglione's The Book of the Courtier was the Renaissance guide to this law, teaching nobles how to use wit, athletic skill, musical talent, and conversational grace to win the favor of their prince without seeming to try. Modern example: the most successful executive assistant doesn't just manage schedules. They learn their boss's unspoken preferences, anticipate their needs, handle difficult situations discreetly, and make the executive look good in every situation, thereby making themselves indispensable. Or 25. Recreate yourself. The principle: do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Forge a new identity that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Historical example: the philosopher Michel de Montaigne literally recreated himself by retiring from public life and inventing a new literary form, the essay, to explore his own evolving thoughts and identity, creating a timeless legacy. Modern example: the musician David Bowie was the master of recreation, shifting personas from Ziggy Stardust to the thin white duke to a mainstream pop star. Each reinvention generated new interest and kept him relevant for decades. Law 26. Keep your hands clean. The principle: you must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. To maintain your spotless reputation, use scapegoats and cat's paws to conceal your involvement in dirty deeds. Once the deed is done, dispose of these tools conveniently. Historical example: Queen Catherine de' Medici of France, one of history's great puppeteers, rarely gave a direct order for an assassination or a riot. She used intermediaries and allowed her ambitious underlings to do the dirty work, then denied all knowledge when it suited her. Modern example: a corporate raider might use a shell company or a little-known investment firm to quietly acquire shares in a target company, avoiding attention and regulatory scrutiny until the takeover is inevitable. A Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. The principle: people have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. Become the focal point of this desire by offering them a cause, a new faith, a vision that gives their lives meaning. Keep your vision vague, but full of promise, and emphasize enthusiasm over rationality. Historical example: the rise of many religious and political movements follows this pattern. The leader offers not just policies or doctrines, but salvation, purpose, and a sense of belonging, inspiring fanatical devotion. Modern example: Steve Jobs didn't just sell computers. He sold a vision of a future where technology would be insanely great and would empower individuals to think different. This created a cult-like following of employees and customers who believed they were part of a world-changing mission. Law 28. Enter action with boldness. The principle: if you are unsure of a course of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. But when you do act, act with utter boldness. Any mistakes you make through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Few people can resist the sheer hypnotic power of a bold individual. Historical example: in 49 BC, when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legion, he was committing treason and starting a civil war. He declared alia iacta est, the die is cast. There was no turning back. His absolute boldness swept aside his hesitant enemies in Rome. Modern example: a CEO announcing a radical company-wide pivot, say from selling software to providing a service, must do so with absolute, unshakable conviction. Any hint of doubt or apology will be magnified by employees and investors, dooming the initiative. Or 29. Plan all the way to the end. The principle: we ending is everything. Do not be caught by surprise. As you undertake a project, you must visualize every step of the way, from initiation to completion. Consider all the consequences, obstacles, and twists of fate that might arise. Historical example: the Allied planning for D-Day in 1944 was a masterpiece of this law. It accounted for tides, moon phases, weather, German defenses, airborne landings, naval bombardment, and complex logistics for hundreds of thousands of men. They planned for multiple scenarios, all the way to the liberation of Europe. Modern example: a novelist doesn't just start writing chapter 1. They outline the entire plot, character arcs, subplots, and the final resolution to ensure a cohesive, powerful, and satisfying narrative from beginning to end. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. The principle: conceal all the toil, practice, and clever tricks behind your success. Like the swan gliding gracefully on water while paddling furiously underneath, you must make the difficult appear easy. This creates an aura of natural genius and power. Historical example: the legendary artist Michelangelo was said to create his masterpieces with such apparent ease that observers thought he simply released figures that were already trapped within the marble. Modern example: a brilliant public speaker delivers a complex presentation without notes, speaking fluidly and confidently. The audience never sees the weeks of preparation and rehearsal that went into making it look so effortless. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. The principle: the best deceptions are ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Structure the options so that no matter which one they choose, they win you something. They feel in control, while you are the one who actually dictates the terms. Historical example: Henry Kissinger, as Secretary of State, was a master of this in negotiations. He would present diplomatic options to other nations that were framed as choices, but all paths ultimately led to outcomes favorable to American interests. Modern example: a manager might give an employee a choice. You can lead the new project team, or you can take on the major client account. Which appeals more? Both options serve the manager's goal of getting important work done, but the employee feels empowered by the choice. Law 32. play to people's fantasies. The principle: the truth is often ugly, inconvenient, and difficult. People will actively embrace a beautiful, simple fantasy over a complex reality. Do not waste time trying to preach the hard truth. Instead, become a merchant of wonder and feed the fantasies people desperately want to believe. Historical example: P.T. Barnum, the great showman, didn't present boring reality. He offered the Fiji Mermaid, General Tom Thumb, and other incredible attractions that allowed people to believe, for a moment, in a more magical world. Modern example: the entire luxury goods industry is built on this law. They don't just sell a handbag. They sell the fantasy of a glamorous, sophisticated, and enviable lifestyle. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. The principle: everyone has a weakness, an insecurity, an unfulfilled desire. It is the lever you must find to move them. It is often the thing they are most proud of, their vanity, or most ashamed of, their insecurity. Historical example: Catherine the Great came to power by appealing to the Russian military's desire for a strong, stable, and expansionist leader. She played on their fears that her husband, Tsar Peter III, was weak and beholden to Russia's enemies, and she became their champion. Modern example: a negotiator dealing with a counterpart who prides themselves on being a visionary and innovator will frame the deal not in terms of immediate profit, but as a groundbreaking, legacy-defining partnership that will change the industry. Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. The principle: the way you carry yourself will often determine how you are treated. Act with dignity, confidence, and self-belief, and others will assume you have the power to justify such behavior. Do not beg, command. Example: Queen Elizabeth I used every tool at her disposal: portraiture, grand spectacles, powerful speeches, to project an image of majestic, divinely ordained authority that commanded the obedience and awe of her subjects. Modern example: a job candidate who walks into an interview with perfect posture, a firm handshake, and speaks about their accomplishments with quiet authority is treated with more respect and seen as more valuable than a candidate who appears nervous and deferential. Law 35. Master the art of timing. The principle: never seem to be in a hurry. Patience is not passive, it is an active strategic weapon. Learn to stand back when the time is not yet ripe, and strike with speed and fierceness when the moment has reached fruition. Historical example: the great Chinese strategists of the Three Kingdoms period were masters of waiting. They would let their enemies exhaust themselves through long campaigns and internal strife, only moving in for the final, decisive blow when the opponent was at their weakest. Modern example: a savvy investor waits for a market panic to drive stock prices to rock bottom before buying, while amateur investors are selling in a fearful rush. They master their emotions and understand that timing is everything. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. The principle: by acknowledging a petty problem, you give it existence and credibility. The more you struggle with it, the worse it becomes. The superior response is to ignore it completely. If there is something you want but cannot have, show contempt for it. The interest you show is a form of validation. Historical example: when the Macedonian king Demetrius besieged the city of Athens, the philosopher Diogenes simply continued rolling his tub and ignored the entire invasion. His disdain for the king's power was a more potent statement than any resistance. Modern example: a celebrity targeted by a tabloid with a false story does not issue a furious denial, which would only keep the story in the news. They simply ignore it, refusing to validate the accusation with a response, and the story quickly dies. Law 37. Create compelling spectacles. The principle: striking imagery and grand symbolic gestures create the aura of power. Words are forgotten, but dramatic images and spectacular events burn themselves into the memory. Dazzle your audience by appealing to their senses. Historical example: the Roman triumph was the ultimate spectacle. A victorious general would parade through the streets with his army, captives, and loot, creating an unforgettable display of power that cemented his glory in the public mind. Modern example: Apple's product launch events are modern spectacles. The dramatic reveals, the slick presentations, and the carefully controlled atmosphere create a sense of awe and excitement that is far more powerful than any technical specification sheet. Law 38. Think as you like but behave like others. The principle: flaunting your unconventional ideas and nonconformity will only win you the resentment and anger of the conventional majority. By blending in and mimicking the behavior, dress, and language of those around you, you can operate freely and without resistance. Share your radical ideas only with the trusted and the wise. Historical example: during the Spanish Inquisition, many Jews and Muslims, conversos and Moriscos, outwardly converted to Catholicism and adopted all the public rituals of the faith to avoid persecution, practicing their true beliefs in secret. Modern example: a liberal employee in a deeply conservative company will keep their political opinions to themselves at work, avoiding unnecessary conflict and focusing on their professional performance and shared business goals. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. The principle: anger and emotion are strategically counterproductive. You must always stay calm and objective. However, you can make your enemies angry. If you can intentionally upset and unsettle your opponents, you can easily manipulate them into making fatal errors. Historical example: the ancient Athenian general Themistocles, during the Persian Wars, used clever ruses and taunts to lure the massive Persian fleet into the narrow straits of Salamis, where their numbers became a disadvantage and they were destroyed. Modern example: a skilled debater remains perfectly calm while subtly needling their opponent, pushing their buttons until the opponent loses their temper and says something irrational or foolish, losing the argument and the audience's respect. Law 40. Despise the free lunch. The principle: what is offered for free is inevitably a trick. Pay your own way. The powerful are defined by their self-sufficiency. By paying the full price, you stay free of gratitude, guilt, and hidden obligations. Historical example: the Trojan horse was the ultimate free lunch. The Trojans saw a magnificent gift left by their enemies and brought it inside their walls with catastrophic consequences. Modern example: a venture capitalist is deeply suspicious of a startup founder who is desperate for investment on any terms. They prefer to invest in founders who demonstrate self-sufficiency and value their company highly, as it shows strength and conviction. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. The principle: you will forever be compared to the person who came before you. The situation is set against you from the start. It is far better to be the first to establish a new order than the second who follows a legend. Historical example: Alexander the Great did not try to be a better version of his father, King Philip II. He stepped out of his father's shadow entirely by embarking on an unprecedented conquest of the Persian Empire, creating his own far greater legend. Modern example: The CEO who follows a beloved, long-serving founder has an almost impossible task. A wise successor would quickly pivot the company's strategy in a new direction, making comparisons to the past irrelevant. Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. The principle. Trouble can often be traced to a single individual, a troublemaker, a charismatic leader, a stirrer of discontent. Do not try to negotiate with the flock. Neutralize the leader, and the group will disintegrate. Historical example. In the Gallic Wars, Julius Caesar understood that the various Gallic tribes were only a real threat when united under a powerful chieftain like Vercingetorix. By defeating and capturing Vercingetorix, he broke the back of the rebellion. Modern example. To stop a unionization effort, a company might identify and promote the most influential pro-union employee, giving them a management role and thus removing them from the organizing group, which then often loses momentum. Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. The principle. Coercion creates a reaction that will eventually work against you. You must seduce others into wanting to move in your direction. Appeal to their self-interest, but wrap it in the language of shared emotions, values, and ideals. Historical example. Martin Luther King Jr. did not coerce people into supporting the civil rights movement. He worked on their hearts and minds with his powerful oratory, appealing to America's founding ideals of freedom and justice, and thus won the moral support of the nation. Modern example. A leader trying to implement a major change in a company doesn't just issue a memo. They hold town halls, tell inspiring stories about the future, and connect the change to employees' own desires for growth and success. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The principle. The mirror reflects reality, but it is also a tool of distortion and deception. By mirroring your enemies doing exactly as they do, you humiliate them and reveal their hidden intentions. They cannot grasp a strategy that mirrors their own. Historical example. During the Cold War, the strategy of mutually assured destruction, MAD, was a form of mirroring. The US mirrored the Soviet Union's nuclear buildup, creating a stalemate that prevented either side from using their weapons. Modern example. In a negotiation, if the other party uses aggressive, hardball tactics, you can mirror them perfectly, showing them the ugliness and futility of their own strategy, often forcing them to adopt a more reasonable approach. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. The principle. Everyone understands that change is necessary in the abstract, but on a deep level, people are creatures of habit and are terrified of the new. If you are new to a position of power, respect the old way of doing things. Make change feel like a gentle and respectful improvement on the past. Historical example. When the Tokugawa shogunate unified Japan, they did not destroy the existing feudal structure. They co-opted it, leaving the daimyo, lords, with their lands and status, but imposing strict new controls and systems that centralized power over time. Modern example. A new manager taking over a team with entrenched processes will not immediately scrap everything. They will implement changes slowly, framing them as optimizations or updates to the existing respected workflow. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. The principle. It is dangerous to appear too perfect, too lucky, too powerful. It creates envy, and envy creates silent enemies. It is smart to occasionally display minor, harmless vices or make small, human errors to make yourself more relatable and less threatening. Historical example. The brilliant Roman general Scipio Africanus, the man who defeated Hannibal, was sometimes accused of spending too much time at the theater and enjoying Greek culture. These minor flaws made his immense talent and success more palatable to his rivals in the Senate. Modern example. A wildly successful CEO might give an interview where they talk about their fear of public speaking or a past business failure. This makes them seem more human and likable, deflecting the envy that their success might otherwise generate. Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, know when to stop. The principle. The moment of victory is often the moment of greatest danger. In the heat of triumph, arrogance can push you past your goal, leading to overreach. Set a goal, and when you reach it, stop. Do not get greedy and risk everything you've won for a little bit more. Historical example. After defeating Persia, Alexander the Great's army pushed further and further into India. His men, exhausted and thousands of miles from home, finally mutinied, forcing him to abandon his conquests and begin a long, difficult retreat. Modern example. A company that has successfully acquired a key competitor should focus on integrating it, not immediately launching another, even larger takeover. Overreaching can strain finances and management, destroying the value of the initial victory. Law 48. Assume formlessness. The principle. This is the ultimate law of strategy. Do not have a rigid, fixed, or predictable structure. Be as fluid and adaptable as water. By having no fixed form, you cannot be grasped, attacked, or understood. Be infinitely malleable, capable of changing your shape to fit any circumstance. Historical example. The Vietnamese forces during the Vietnam War used guerrilla tactics. They had no fixed front lines, headquarters, or uniforms. They would melt into the jungle and local population, making it impossible for the technologically superior U.S. military to deliver a decisive, conventional blow. Modern example. A modern tech company might operate with agile, cross-functional squads that can be rapidly assembled and disbanded for specific projects, allowing it to pivot and adapt to market changes far faster than a competitor with a rigid departmental hierarchy. The responsibility of power. As we conclude our exhausted 2-hour journey through the 48 laws of power, it is imperative to reflect on the weight and nature of this knowledge. Robert Greene has provided a stark, unsentimental, and amoral map of a landscape that most people prefer to ignore. These laws are descriptive. They reveal how power has been accumulated and wielded throughout history, not how one ought to behave morally. The choice of how you use this map is your profound responsibility. You can adopt these laws aggressively to climb to the top, but you must be prepared for the paranoia, isolation, and constant vigilance that often accompany such a path. You can use them defensively, as a shield to recognize the power plays of colleagues, rivals, and even friends, thereby protecting your own interests and sanity. Or you can use them as a lens for understanding the world, granting you a clearer vision of why events unfold. Power is a fundamental force, like gravity. To deny its existence is to live in a fantasy. The 48 laws of power does not encourage you to be evil. It encourages you to be awake. It is a tool for strategic thought. Wield this tool not with malice, but with wisdom, foresight, and a deep understanding of the consequences. Remember, the greatest power is often the power to choose not to use all the power at your disposal. Thank you for your valuable time and for listening to this comprehensive audio in My Book Library.